Have you ever felt that you were meant for more, yet it seems like prosperity is constantly evading you? You can't seem to reach it. You want to chase it, but you can't seem to grab and latch onto it. There's a reason for that, and it has to do with alignment. And the title of this video is Three Shifts for Soul Aligned Prosperity. For those of you who signed up for this, there's a reason you're here. And I want to share with you today what those three shifts are that are going to put you in a state of alignment where you will be aligned with your purpose and not fall into the traps of distraction that are out there, because you're going to be aware of what they are and how to shift out of them. So with that, let's dive in. All right. So if you're here, we are talking about soul alignment for prosperity. And so I am going to talk about some things in regards to the fact that you are a soul and you don't have one. You are a soul. You are living in a body, in a physical body, and you have access to a very powerful mind. My name is Rhonda Petit. For those of you who don't know me, I am a professional speaker, best-selling author of The Spirit of Selling, and a peak performance coach. And I help sales leaders in med tech lean into change and leverage disruption for their advantage so they can start having fun at work and attract, inspire, and retain top talent to create sustainable businesses. Now, what we're talking about today is the type of prosperity that's not just financial. I'm talking about a holistic concept of your well-being, your health, and your prosperity, so that both your soul, body, and mind, everything's aligned in a state that brings you joy and fulfillment. And so to talk about that, I always like to start with principles and then go into the details. So the principles are all principles are truth because they never change, they're timeless. And so if we start with principles, we always are going to find an answer that's going to allow for a transformation. So the spiritual laws that I'm going to be talking about today are the law of Dharma, which states that you are sent here with a purpose to serve humanity. And when you tap into that purpose and you align to your values, you access power, heart power, where mind, body, and soul converge. That's 5,000 times stronger than what you can do in your head and your brain. So when your prosperity is flowing, it's because you're aligned with purposes and values, and instead of from the protection. And I'll explain that. Now, to explain the protection, I want to talk about some physical laws because you operate on the physical realm. We all have to, in this universe, there are certain laws like the law of polarity, the law of vibration, and the law of perpetual transmutation. And just as they work in nature, they also work in us. And when we understand those laws and how to create momentum with those laws, then we can experience the prosperity that we're all seeking. Now, if I start at the law of polarity, what I want to talk to you about first is a concept. I want you to entertain accepting this idea that your mind, which is invisible, operates with polarity just like nature does. And so there's a positive side and a negative side to everything that has life, and that positive and negative circuit create infinite life and growth. And when we are focused with our minds towards purpose, we tend to have experience growth. But when we're focused in our minds to protection and thinking that something's missing or we have to protect ourselves and our amygdala takes over, then we are more in our ego thinking about ourselves, and we're focused on the negative end of the mind. And when we're in that direction, we don't get as much magnetism as we would when we're focused on purpose. Now, what this picture is for any of you who have never seen it, if you've, I learned, did some time, I spent some time with Bob Proctor, and I learned about this stick man, and he said this was the best picture that he's ever had of explaining something invisible like your mind. We're not talking about the brain, we're talking about the mind. And the mind that we have access to is universal mind, and it has two parts. So you as a soul can operate and direct your mind to think about what you want to think about in your conscious mind. And anything that we get emotionally involved in gets suppressed on our subconscious mind. And what we emotionally get involved in with our subconscious mind is what we call feeling or our vibration. So if you think of the law of vibration, it's basically a word that detects, that picks up the frequency of which we're vibrating from. And that vibration either is positive or negative. So either we're in a state of joy and anticipation, or we're in a state of worry and concern. And depending upon whether, if we're in a state of joy and anticipation, we get a positive vibration that causes our body to move forward and get into high amounts of action and get momentum. But if we're focused on protection and something negative that we're concerned or worried about, it slows us down and really distracts us and keeps us away from our purpose. And it's a heavier energy that we have because of that. And we have a choice of what we're going to think about. So what I want to explain is that this polarity is affecting results. So if you excuse me, there's another thing that happens that helps our magnetism grow, and that's when we align our purpose and our values. Now, values are something that you feel in your gut, and it controls the regulation of your communication. So if you think of values, it's a signal as to whether you have alignment to get your soul aligned for prosperity or you don't. And so, what I mean by that is when our values are misaligned and we're doing things that are not aligned with our conscience, which is something that we've been given in our body to kind of know right from wrong and what we should be doing. When our conscious governor and values do not align with what our actions are and what we're thinking about, typically you feel things in your gut where you feel uncomfortable. You might feel stress. You might feel resentment. You might have feelings of lack of fulfillment. That's a signal that something's off in your magnetism. But when those values are aligned and they're aligned with purpose towards the positive pole, your soul creates alignment and your magnetism becomes very strong. And when you have strong magnetism, you have strong ability to pull and attract things towards you, which creates prosperity, whether that's in your health, wealth, or financially. And so what I'm going to talk about today is the three traps that you can fall into as human beings that can distract you from purpose and keep you away from prosperity. So I want to reveal what those are and then talk about the shifts that you can take, because the key part of what I'm giving you today is when you have this awareness, you can do something about it. If you're totally unaware that these are traps and what's going on, then you're going to stay stuck where you are. So polarity, just to give you feelings, since we're talking about vibration, the feelings you have when you're in a high state of flow and your soul is aligned and you're aligned with your purpose and you're aligned with your values, you typically are living on the positive side of life. You're responding to situations that are occurring, not reacting. You tend to have a high amount of trust in yourself, high amount of trust in the people that are around you. You've got discernment, you have boundaries, you have flow and high energy. You tend to draw all kinds of abundance to you. You feel a sense of empowerment, and your voice is expressing. You're talking, you have no problems getting things, releasing energy and expressing yourself. And you typically respect yourself, others, and because of that, you're just in a light state. But if you're get distracted and you fall into one of these traps where you're more focused on your protection, you're on the negative pole, you're really disintegrating as opposed to growing, because you're getting yourself in a little bit in complacency. You're not really moving a lot, because again, that mind, if it's thinking about worry or doubt or something, it's not going to move. It gets stuck. Where when you're on purpose and you're thinking about creating and building something and serving humanity, you're in high state of movement. And what happens in when we get into protection mode or fall in these three traps is that we tend to react. We tend to distrust everything because we think we're under attack. There's a lot of judgment either on ourselves, on others, or on circumstances. Tend to resist more than renounce. We tend to find ourselves in a state of scarcity, become disempowered, feel like what's the point, and our voice gets restricted because the values are off in alignment, and we typically don't feel a sense of high respect for ourselves, others, etc. So we're more in the ego at that point. So hopefully that's clear on the polarity of what we're going to talk about, so that you can recognize now as I go into the traps why they take you down the alley of protection, and hopefully it's going to make a lot of sense on how you can shift out and get right back onto purpose and get yourself aligned. Now, if you think about magnetism, I love the definition of magnetism in the sense that it's it's something that can be displayed, but it's always present. It's just an issue of whether it's getting displayed or not. I say that because many people say, "Oh, something's wrong with me." No, there's nothing wrong with you. If you're not attracting prosperity into your life where you want it, all that's wrong is that the magnetism inside of you, your thoughts, feelings, and actions, your purpose, your values, everything isn't lined up and in one direction. Because when the electrons in a magnet, if you have if you're familiar with science, you can have a magnet sitting on the table. You can have two magnets, and one is magnetized and one's not. And then the only difference is that the electrons are totally in disorder and they're demagnetized. That's why they have no power. So that what we're going to talk about is how to make sure that you get alignment so that you can get your magnetism displayed again to attract the prosperity you want. And so the question that I'd like to start with, I gave you one question to ask you about if have you felt anything in your gut, uncomfortable feelings, or has your voice been suppressed? But I'm also going to ask you questions about the direction of your thinking and the charge of you thinking. Have you been thinking about things on the positive side of things in terms of attitude towards yourself and everything else around, and the direction of your thoughts? Have they been forward, or have they been primarily in the rearview mirror? Because that's the thing that you want to the analysis you want to go through to figure out if your magnetism is on or off, and how to get yourself back in alignment for soul aligned prosperity. So here's the traps. It's easy to remember because there are three L's. The three traps are lies about your identity, lack, and loss. I'll say that again: lies, lack, and loss. And what happens is when you fall in these traps of lies, lack, and loss, your perception gets blurred. You can't see things for what they really are. And so what I want to give you is a definition of each trap so that you understand what it is, and then I'm going to show you a shift to get out of it when that happens to you. And they're normal things. So the first one I want to talk about is lies about identity. Some people call it lie identity. I call it black knot disease has infected you. And what I mean by black knot is I had a cherry tree or a plum tree, excuse me, in my front yard, which I loved. It had red leaves, but it got black knot disease. And what it is it's a fungus, and this black fungus grows. And what it does is it constricts the flow of the energy in the tree, and then the branches die off. And so what it does is causes disintegration, and then you have to have the tree removed. So when you think about your identity, and if you've studied anything in self-image or read Maxwell Maltz's book, you know that it's never who you think you are that holds you back. It's always who you think you're not. I'll say that again. It's never who you think you are that holds you back. It's always who you think you are not. What I mean by that is when you say things to yourself, either in talking to yourself or talking out loud, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I don't, I'm not whatever enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not, pick your flavor of not. When you start saying things like that, you are focused on what you're not instead of who you are. And you have to understand that basically is a canceling effect. That's basically things that cause your worth to go down. It causes you to feel sometimes embarrassed or shamed because you believe in this not identity. And so what you do is you put on a mask, and you run around in imposter syndrome, and you try to worry about pleasing everyone and not showing like what's missing in you. And that's just a disastrous way to live. And what you have to understand is it's a trap. It's a trap in that it's going to destroy trust. uh, Everyone wants to live with integrity to themselves and integrity with other people to build their relationships up. And when we get caught up in what we're not, we tend to have the mask on, so we're not authentic, we're not honest, we might avoid things. We may get defensive because we're irritated because somebody said we're not something and we believe we are. So you get into this prove it antagonism feeling, and or you suffer from approval addiction, and you run your whole life based upon worrying about what anybody else thinks what anybody else thinks, because you want to please everyone. And that's just a terrible way to live. It's out of duty and obligation, and you're not being true to you, and you're not being true and showing up as the real you. And somebody needs the real you, and you're just not showing up. So that's the first trap that we can fall into. So I would ask yourself, if if you're in a state of not having any prosperity right now, are you feeling imposter syndrome? Do you feel like your worth is diminished for some reason? Did someone hurt your feelings and say something to you, in third grade, and you're still living with, I'm not smart enough for something, or I'm not good at math, or whatever it is? Because what you want to do is not be focused on what you're not, but be focused on who you are, because who you are is unique, and who you are is desperately needed in this world. And the sooner you get over that lie identity, the sooner that you're going to be able to experience the prosperity that you will have when you align with your purpose and values. So that's number one. Second one is number two, is when we get distracted with what we don't have. So this is like as if you had a coin and you took it up against your eye and you were focused looking at the coin, in front of you. What it does is it distorts your peripheral vision, right? So this is the trick the enemy used with Eve in the garden, in the Garden of Eden, because the snake slivered up and he said to Eve, "Hey, what about this tree? Why can't you eat from this tree?" And instead, so what did that do? It took Eve's attention off of all the abundance that was in the Garden of Eden, and it focused her in the wrong direction on what was missing, to the point where she got so obsessed and so myopically focused on it that she could not see opportunity and abundance around her. That's what we do when we get focused on lack. We look at the bank account, we look at our sales results, or whatever, and we get so obsessed looking at that we're not looking at all the opportunities of where we can be taking action to create, to use what we have and the opportunities to create abundance in our world. So if you've been caught up in that trap of being so focused on what's missing, instead of what is, and you're basically blinded to opportunity, and that's why you're stuck. So what you want to do is you want to recognize, have I been myopically focused on what's missing? And if so, I need to pull back and get the broader view and look for the opportunities that are everywhere and what I can leverage. The third lie, the third L, the third trap is focusing on loss instead of victory and triumph. And what I mean by that is loss is a difficult thing. You can lose a job, you can lose a relationship, you can lose somebody because they pass. There's all kinds of horrific losses that human beings go through. But the question is, how are you going to look at that loss? Are you going to look down in the hole and just be myopically focused on what's missing and what you can't have in the moment? Or are you going to flip to thinking about honoring what you had from, before you lost it? What were, what was the victory and the triumph in that? Because maybe you actually had a relationship with someone that you truly, truly loved and you truly, truly miss them, instead of focusing on the fact that, I can't have access to them now when I want them. You may take the approach or the perspective of learning to flip that attitude when that happens, to look for the good. And so what do I mean by that? Especially when we lose someone we love or something we lost, a lot of times the quickest way to get us out of that funk is to have gratitude for those we lost and those we loved, and think about how do we honor them and appreciate the fact that we were blessed with that experience, and that experience that's in our hearts we never lose. And how could we leverage that and take that forward and honor that person and some of the things that they maybe taught us. That's just as an example, and take that forward to cause victory and to have gratitude, knowing that in the end, we're already triumphant, because energy is going to move, especially if it's a physical loss. It's going to move from here to there, but it doesn't energy doesn't disappear. So uh, what are the three shifts? So if we're talking about the fact we are a soul, we don't have one, we are a soul, we have access to a mind, very powerful mind, and we live in a physical body. So if we're going to shift ourselves back towards prosperity, we want to look for the identity lies. We want to look for the have we been focused on loss, and have we been focused on lack, and shift. So the first thing you want to do is say, you want to examine the lie identities and ask yourself if you have been being your authentic identity, and be willing to let go of prioritizing the I am not identity. Let those stories go and really focus yourself on who you are, the unique inherent value of your true identity, which is the way God designed you, with your unique qualities and attributes, and how you can use those to serve others and just be comfortable being the real you. The second thing is training our attitudes. One of the things about attitude is that we always choose our attitude. And our attitude, if we have a negative attitude towards ourselves, towards others, or towards any circumstances, it never does us any good. So the better that we get at mastering where our attitude is and training it to see abundance and possibility everywhere, knowing that opportunities truly are everywhere. They're not limited. There's no lack. The only lack is when we myopically block our vision, so we can't see the abundance that's around. So how can we take a step back and widen that view and really look for the seed of um, triumph inside every adversity, because there's always a lesson or a blessing to take with us. And then, the if we have a loss, turning that loss into something we can leverage, such as wisdom, to move forward is very powerful. So those are the three traps. And if you realize the fact that when you're what I said in the beginning about the polarity, when you turn away from protection, those three the lies, the lack, and the loss have us focus on ourself, and we get, really caught up in our own needs, and we're not focused on serving anyone. And then we typically don't have as much energy, and we're not attracting abundance and prosperity. The minute we flip that and we go into the mode of serving the humanity that's here with us with our gifts, and we get on purpose, and we decide that we're going to be authentic. We decide that we're going to control our attitude and look for opportunities, look for abundance, and focus on that, not the lack. And we're going to be triumphant in a state of adversity, and know that there's a seed of greatness in every adversity, and use it and take the wisdom. Then we're going to start to get our magnetism all focused in one direction to cause that prosperity to really align. So the question you want to ask yourself is, hey, where am I misaligned? Is there any identity I am not stories that I'm buying into that I need to let go? Is there any lack phenomenon where I've been so myopically focused on what's missing that I can't see what's around me? And have I been focused on loss or failure, and instead of looking at it as something that I can use to take forward with wisdom and create some momentum? And so, if that's you and you feel like you need some help, I want to offer a complimentary diagnosis. I have a real easy link that you can access, with and get a diagnosis report on where maybe one of these three traps have trapped you. And I'll tell you a quick little story because I don't want you to have a blowout. So I was on this tire picture, and it goes with my story, and you'll understand why in a minute. But when I was traveling in the winter with my other car, I had the light come on in my car, the yellow light in the warning light, and it said, low tire pressure, or it usually means you hit something. So I called my husband, who was behind me following me back home, and he said, pull over at the next exit, and I have a tire pump, and I'll put some air in your tires. And so I pulled over, and I get out of the car, and my husband's like, he gets out of the car and he's not moving. And he's looking at the back of my car like as if he's seen a freaking crime scene. And I said, what's going on? Why aren't you going to you know, put the air in the tire? He looked at me and he said, Rhonda, there's no tires here. These are completely bald. The wires are hanging out of it. What were you doing? Like victory burnouts in the parking lot and you didn't tell me? And I said, huh? And I looked at the tire and I saw the tire and I'm like, oh my word. And then he goes, didn't you feel anything was off? And then I had to think, and I said, well, actually, when I was driving north, the back end of my car was kind of slipping, but I just thought that was like black ice, the New England charm. And I didn't think anything of it, and I didn't really have time to look at it. And he said, did you hit anything? And then you know how your mind has to go search for an answer? And then I'm thinking back, oh, well, yeah, a couple weeks ago, I was driving on 287 and I fell into this big hole and it went boom, a big thud, boom, right? But no lights came on in the car. And I figured, oh, it's fine. Well, my point is that we can't fix something if we're not willing to do some introspection and take some time, take a road stop and a pit stop and see where we are. And I don't want you to have a blowout like I could have had if that light didn't come on. That could have been a lot worse than just having to figure out how to get to the nearest tire store to get some new tires so I could go home. But if that's you, I want to invite you to take a diagnosis. It's complimentary, and scan the QR code that I have here and get back a diagnosis report that'll tell you where maybe you're not leveraging enough opportunities in the three areas because maybe you fell into one of those traps. And that's my gift to you for tuning in here. And then if once you get that back, if you choose that you want to have further conversations, we can arrange that. but at least take the time, especially if at the beginning when I told you, have you been feeling anything like stress or resentment, or like something's off in your gut, if your voice has been constricted lately for some reason, those are the physical clues that you may have some misalignments. And let's get you back aligned and get you headed towards the prosperity that you deserve, because you're meant for more. And no point in staying stuck. Just let's just get you back aligned and you'll be off to the races. So I hope you enjoyed that. I want to thank you for being here. And if you'd like to reach out or contact me, you can go to rhondapetit.com. But otherwise, I wish you a wonderful day and thanks for your time. Bye. See you soon.